Don't get too sentimental, film fans. This is not something that we ought to be, patting ourselves on the backs over our appreciation of. This is something which ought to be the shared treasure of the entire planet. Every human being. Now, certainly it is one of the greatest screenplays ever written, which would have made for a classic Graham Greene novel anyway, graced with the majesty of a seminal director Reed, cinematographer Krasker, a cast which both shone, literally, to a casual viewer with no knowledge of the significance of Wells Cotton or them collaborating, and which performed active symbolism toward recent film history itself. Wells and Cotton's presence in a British or European film, indeed Wells's presence in the film outright, are tangible manifestations of their significance in filmmaking at that time in history, without claiming the film's casting choices represent deliberation as opposed to incidental decisions in this respect. To a viewer, a film enthusiast, now, Wells' role in The Third Man demonstrates the legendary auteur insurmountably influential upon the rest of visual storytelling history, discarded from Hollywood, portraying a smaller but pivotal role in a major, yet thriller-inclined British/European, highly financed production. That didn't just happen to embody where Wells was at. It was where he was at. There was no need for metaphors or symbolism when the act of the film's production and those roles themselves indicated the circumstances so lucidly, so loudly. We cannot help now but interpret the interactions between Cotton's and Wells's roles as referential of their post-Citizen Kane existences, a rather active, for decades subsequent to, Hollywood actor Cotton speaking of sorrow and highly complicated emotions to the man he owed so much, yet he couldn't truly help find a place in the society they both once belonged. Wells a bit outcast, Lime a career criminal. It didn't just happen to represent where they were at via coincidental casting, it was where both of their careers, Cotton's and Wells', were at. A leading man interacting with an auteur relegated to colourful supporting roles and an enormous influence over the production process itself. And Wells' influence upon The Third Man's direction is absolutely assured. Whether that was via Wells' films existing prior, Wells giving some advice on set, or Reed asking this young master director his own opinions, which I cannot imagine he wouldn't have done, as if one wouldn't, even if Wells' reputation wasn't quite what it is in the present day or for posterity. Wells' casting had been apparently Reed's specific idea anyway. Fighting for his casting against the despicable dream Baron Selznick, one of the film's three producers alongside Reed himself, and the more amiable, likeable, and actually also a gifted director, Alexander Korda. Reed and Wells were friendly, and happened to be having dinner with one another, Reed having just read a draft of Graham Greene's now famous script. He decided to offer the Harry Lime part to Wells, both for Wells' talent, but also because, inevitably looking back, this was the kind of role he could feasibly cast Wells in. No financier would allow him a lead role, indeed Selznick didn't want Wells in the film at all, and likely only capitulated due to the role's limited screen time. The point is, Reed was an admirer of Wells. He wasn't in a Carol Reed film by mistake. And so if the film was informed by Reed's liking of Wells' films, or his willingness to listen to an apparent friend's suggestions or ideas on set, no one has reason for their surprise. One fascinating claim from Reed I have read, in the interviews wherein I sourced his information about Wells being cast, conducted by Charles Thomas Samuels, you may find that excerpt online as I had, is that the film's ultra-iconic ending shot, Anna walking right past Holly, who is expecting her to stop and speak with him, did not feature in Greene's script, which featured a more comforting by comparison ending, Holly and Anna walking beside each other up that road, presumably in silence. Maybe the source script would not have made so great a novel from Greene after all. Reed claims a few facets of the film's narrative to be sourced from him or the production circumstances uniquely. The prominence of the cat, indeed Harry Lime only appearing 2/3 into the film as opposed to at the halfway mark, at Wells' insistence apparently. Reed seems to infer the shot of Lime's hands, actually Reed's own, on film, clasping out of the sewer grating was his idea, but also that the apparent ambiguity of who fires the final shot into Lime was due to censors objecting to the depicted violence. Holly was meant to shoot Lime dead as an act of mercy. The one could interpret that gunshot as a prospective suicide. I'm not sure if that possibility is removed by any factors. I don't think it's explicitly shown. It might be. Forgive me. Lime losing his firearm after attempting to escape via the grate. Reed's influence upon the execution of the story itself, beyond just at the narrative level, are also, of course, and even more so, seismic. Happening upon composer Anton Karas in Vienna, it was Reed himself who then accommodated their stay in London to record the score, Karas' own original composition. Indeed, the decision to shoot on location in Vienna was Reed's insistence, as well as filming it first using that wide-eyed lens to, quote, distort the buildings and emphasize the wet cobblestone streets, unquote, and also via consistent Dutch angles, so consistently employed in the film that Reed decided not to employ the method much further in his career, as he did not want casual viewers to even be aware of the angles, and if they became a noted trademark, that would be likely impossible. The Third Man lives up to the hype more than most designated great films ever will, especially of those shot in black and white. You can disagree on many a topic with many a film fan, but only if they denigrate the Third Man will you declare it a trespass too far. And, despite the existence of Citizen Kane, The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, Notorious, or Suspicion, or Spellbound, or, of course, the Cotton starring Shadow of a Doubt, Olivier's Hamlet, Bicycle Thieves, or even Turner's legendary classic, The Leopard Man, I would be more comfortable claiming, instead of any of those, even The Leopard Man, though high up on a list they might be or are, that The Third Man was the greatest film released during the challenging, traumatic, yet nobly endured decade that was the 40s. Oh, what does this book have to say? 1001 movies I must see before I cark it. Let's hope I don't get assassinated anytime soon. I've probably only seen 3/4 of that sum. I've always partly wanted to be assassinated if I had to die young for some reason. Dying as Pasolini, Trotsky, Juanita Nelson, Gandhi, MLK, James Miller, or Karen Silkwood had seems a bit nobler, if nothing else. Written for the screen by Graham Greene, the still-in-print book is actually a novelization. Carol Reed's The Third Man effectively transfers the urban, nightmare world of Hollywood film noir of the 1930s to a European setting, picking up the messy aftermath of the war and providing a 5 years on follow-up to the works of British thriller writers and European exile filmmakers. It shows the post-war consequences of movements expressed in early Hitchcock films, The Lady Vanishes 1938 and Secret Agent 1936, mid-period Fritz Lang, The Green-Derived Ministry of Fear 1944. Oh, just as an aside, that's been discussed in this channel prior as well. Check that out if you like. It's probably one of my better videos released during the first year of this channel's uploads. Dare I say, the Jeffrey Household-inspired Manhunt, 1941. That's a good one from Lang. And Eric, we haven't discussed it on the channel yet, though. Would like to. And Eric Ambler adaptations like Journey into Fear, 1942, and The Mask of Dimitrios, 1944. Occupied Vienna, divided between 4 military powers and plagued by black marketing scoundrels, is as fantastical a setting as any devised for studio exoticism, but Reed and his crew were able to shoot on location amid rubble and glitz, capturing a world of fear that was all too real. It's a fascinating merging here of the Western European neorealist movement with the contemporary to the war and / post-war film noir movements, mainly Hollywood oriented, but also having its manifestations certainly in the UK and in parts of Western Europe as well, for sure. Into this devastated realm of corruption comes American innocent Holly Martins, Joseph Cotton, a writer of pulp westerns. He was somehow asked to deliver a serious literary lecture to a stuffy cultural group. Only the military police sergeant Bernard Lee at the back of the hall has ever read any of his work. Holly is shocked to learn that his boyhood friend Harry Lime, Orson Welles, has recently made a mysterious death and is suspected of involvement in an especially dastardly racket. Holly gets mixed up with one of Harry's girlfriends, Alida Valli, and a succession of sinister eccentrics in search of the third man who was seen carrying Lime's body away. Harry, as everyone except Holly knows, turns out to have faked his own death to get away from policeman Calloway, Trevor Howard. After all these years, it isn't exactly a surprise, but the moment of revelation, as well as Harry is caught by the beam of a street light as a cat nuzzles his shoes, is still magic. Anton Karas's haunting and unforgettable Ziffer theme plunks on the soundtrack, and Wells spins a virtual cameo into one of the screen's greatest charming villains. The Third Man's most famous speech, the cuckoo clock anecdote, delivered up above the little dots on the Vienna Ferris reel, was written by Wells on the spur of the moment as an addition to Green's script, filling out the character and perhaps securing the picture's lasting greatness. A rare British film that is as accomplished technically as the best of classic Hollywood. Well, hang on a minute. Well, Hitchcock in the 30s was competing with creatively with some of Hollywood's work. And don't forget where Michael Powell came from. Reed never did anything as masterly again. The Third Man, that's probably true, to be fair, sadly. The Third Man is an outstanding mix of political thriller, weird romance, gothic mystery, and black and white romantic agony. Wells, who is truly brilliant for 5 minutes, has hogged all the press, but it's a perfectly acted film, with wonderful work from Cotton as the bewildered and disappointed hero. His literary lecture is priceless, and the luminous beauty of Italian-style Valley as the heroine by default. It's a film that constantly shimmers in its nocturnal cityscapes, its glowing haunted faces, and the gushing waters of the sewers in which lime is finally flushed away. Few films prior to The Third Man were superior to The Third Man, and many films have come since The Third Man. Some may be able to compete with The Third Man, sure, but there's a very precise and ethereal magic with this film, which I think is utterly timeless, and I just think you're never going to get the likes of such graceful modesty. Not that it's necessarily modest for the time, but I guess filmmaking as a medium has I don't want to say advanced, but developed so much as to render the contents of The Third Man to be quaint by comparison. But in being quaint, it's also very observable, and therefore, as a result, one finds much cause to admire and sort of grasp onto it. It's so tangible in the way that I think that was the appeal of some of the film noirs as the 60s and 70s rolled on. People enjoyed how concise and sort of compact yet sort of observable in all the parts. You know, everything was visible in the frame in a way that the sort of post new wave films they're there, and the sort of quasi docu-realism which motivated camera placements and film direction in the subsequent decades, before we get into the era of computer graphics and more handheld cameras in the 90s and 21st century, they lent film noir a unique, distinct techno aesthetic as the decades passed, in a way that the literature hasn't held up in the same way as sort of artistically strident or distinct, forward thinking by any means. Whereas those claims could be made of those films at the time. And as I said, they stand out to this day as techno-aesthetic items. And film had that luxury compared to other art mediums, even the pre-existing visual arts themselves. Each decade, not consciously, but every 10 years, the dominant techno-aesthetic had completely shifted. The medium's relationship with technology was completely, you couldn't remove it from the tech itself, in a way that literature sort of was beholden to nothing but creativity of the form. And I think classical music as well, obviously with the advent of music production and recording, you get a similar phenomenon occurring in music, for sure, but prior to that, it was the cinema wherein each decade, again, incidentally, you know, every by you could pick the middle of each decade, you know, 15 to 25, 35, 45, 55. And these films, especially at the 20 year, if you do it by, you know, if you go from 75 to 55, 35, 15, etc. These films they're planets apart. Anyway, I've been rambling on, improvising the last couple of minutes there, at my peril perhaps. We'll just close it here. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it very immensely. Go watch The Third Man. It's a better use of your time than watching this particular upload here.